Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Let's Talk Seahawks podcast. I'm your host, Robert Smith, along with my co host, Adam Stellman. Today, we have a special guest with us, and that is one Viking Mitch over there, Mitch Mazio from good old Minnesota, come to give us a little bit of the enemy perspective. How are the Vikings looking going into this preseason matchup? So, guys, let's talk Seahawks. I guess in a little bit of Vikings.
Only a little bit, Mitch. Let's pace ourselves here. Yeah, man, preseason's here. This has been probably the longest off season I can remember in a while. I don't know if that's mainly just anticipation from where we left off. It probably is a little bit of that, and just a great draft. I know I'm not sure about how you felt about your draft there, Mitch, but I know me and Robbie think this is probably certainly the second best draft in the last decade. This or 2021 was, and hopefully 2022 or 2022 is, and hopefully 2023 matches it because it's looking like a good one.
Nice. Yeah, I think the Vikings draft is certainly. I'm pretty optimistic about some of the different scheme changes that they've made. They made a lot of scheme changes last year, so this is kind of that second year going full swing into it. So, the Vikings are kind of in a transition period right now, and so we're trying to get pieces that are going to fit some of the schemes that we're running. And so I think they made a lot of good selections. I was really excited about the Jordan Addison pick. I think a lot of Vikings fans were kind of sour on that one, but. I really like those receivers that are.
Why can't we just throw to Justin Jefferson the entire game?
Right?
I mean, what do you need another pass catcher for?
Right. I think they're probably going to still do that. So they're going to feed him. And Jay Jettis is going to get his for sure. So
yes, I don't mind admitting that I have him in a couple of leagues, fantasy. But yeah, look, this is definitely going to be an interesting season for you guys. I mean, you got rid of some. I don't know if you want to call him dead weight, but obviously Dalvin Cook leaving, and Adam Thielen, who I is one of my favorite players of all time. I just like those big-bodied white receivers. Him, Jordy Nelson. It's always fun watching those guys that don't look like they don't look like football players when they're out of uniform.
So, yeah, and it's really
on the field.
Yeah,
right.
They don't really look like it on the field either. I mean,
yeah.
These are not very toned guys. Like the Travis Kelce body type. For some reason, you look at it and go, I guess that's an athlete.
I think the poster child for that has got to be Hunter Renfrow.
Oh
yes,
for the body type it's that short area quickness. The short area quickness is just a killer in today's modern NFL. Right? It's just transition now to where the big body wide receivers are not. I mean, of course, you're still going to get your height, speed, weight guys who your guys is number one. DK Metcalf is a prime example of that. You're still going to have those.
Is he our number one?
Okay, here's the thing. He probably has the highest potential, right?
Of course he does.
But he's not the best receiver on the team. That's
not
Tyler
close.
Lockett.
Yeah, best route runner, Tyler Lockett. Best hands, Tyler Lockett. Yeah.
Well, part of the thing too that you guys have to understand that I'm looking at with your guys' wide receiver room in particular is yes, Tyler Lockett is elite at some of those things, route running and things of that nature, but he is getting older. He's 32. Mm-hmm. Guys drafted JSN, right? Yep. Who's another guy who is an elite route runner. So I think in short order here, JSN is probably going to take over as that guy in your guys' receiver room.
I feel a little bad for DK because he's never really going to get to be the man in Seattle. Or at least it doesn't look like that projection-wise. But I mean,
hey, if they want to double DK all year, I'm okay with it.
Absolutely, love it. Speaking of DK, we will not be seeing him this game, or Tyler, or JSN probably.
No, JSN will play.
I was going to say, you probably.
Yeah, JSN will play.
We'll see 1 or 2 snaps from JSN.
Let me pull something up, as I was obviously not ready.
Let me whip this out.
So on Twitter, there's an account. And that is Hawkmania. Apparently, they have a big following on Facebook and Instagram.
I don't know this app. Twitter? Never heard of it.
Yeah, I refuse to update the app, so mine still says Twitter and it still has the bird.
Hey, nice. So
okay. I hacked the system.
Not transferring over to X then, huh?
I am not yet anyway. Not till they force me to.
I wish I hadn't.
So as we look at it, this account's really good about bringing out information. Kind of news, kind of things that break. And so they went through some positions. So linebackers, Bobby Wagner's not going to play. They're going to probably start out with Devin Bush and then Radigan or Ben Burkervin next to him. Devin Witherspoon, Jamal Adams, Quandre Diggs, and Julian Love will not play in this game. So you're looking at Artie Burns, Kobe Bryant, Trey Brown, Michael Jackson, some of those guys to show up in the secondary. As far as quarterbacks, we know Geno Smith is sitting, so it'll be Drew Lock and then the undrafted rookie Holton Ahlers in the second half. Running backs, let's see. Charbonnet, Walker, McIntosh, all out with injuries. So DJ Dallas will get the start, and then we'll have the gaggle of undrafted rookie guys that they've picked up because of injuries. Yeah. Defensive line, because apparently I did these out of order. Draymond Jones, Nwosu, Edwards, Jaron Reed should not be playing. I expect to see Cameron Young, Mike Morris, Boye Mafe, Derek Hall. So a lot of rookies out there playing a lot, which is one of the things that I'll come up to on one of the things I'm watching are those young defensive linemen, if they can actually match up well against hopefully some offensive linemen from the Vikings that are going to play that have a little bit of NFL experience under their belt.
You want to go into that right now? Do we want to just go ahead and go into our first, I guess, topic that we're going to be discussing?
Yeah, give me 2 seconds. I'll hit these other starters who aren't playing. Looks like the entire offensive line is playing. So our expected starters should be starting for the Seahawks. They might not play more than a couple series, but you should see the projected starting 5 out there to start this game.
So I guess the question is Evan Brown taking the first snaps?
Evan Brown has edged Oluwatimi as in the news that's coming out. I think by the end of the year, Oluwatimi will be the starting center. Evan Brown will probably start the season as the starting center. And that's just because this organization tends to favor veterans when it's kind of a close battle.
Oh, on the offensive line, they definitely favor veterans.
Like I said, Tyler Lockett, Metcalf, not expected to play. JSN, Eskridge, Bobo, Cody Thompson, all those guys are expected to play. Noah Fant and Disley should sit this one out. So we'll see a heavy dose of Colby Parkinson as the starting tight end with Mabry, Herbert, all those guys kind of filling in those other roles. So a lot of starters won't be playing, but I'm excited.
Preseason. Yeah. I mean, look, this is the thing about preseason. It's what preseason was meant to be, is to get a chance for the coaches, obviously, than the fans, but to get a chance to look at these guys that are on the bubble or have a chance to make the team, but maybe aren't locks. And unfortunately, the NFL doesn't realize that and decided to cut the preseason to 3 games so that they could extend the season to 17, which I don't know. It's like 6 and 1 half a dozen the other. I guess they make more money, but whatever. But yeah, I mean, I think this is for fans that like me and Robbie and I'm sure Mitch. The reason that we watch or we get into these preseason games is because we want to see these guys that we saw come out in the draft or guys we know they're a little bit lower on the depth chart get a chance to shine. And in the past, especially with the Seahawks, this has been a pretty good litmus test for who's making the team on that roster bubble and guys that you might want to watch out for to possibly take a starting position down the road. I mean, we've seen it a million times. I mean, Chris Carson is a big one. I mean, gosh, Doug Baldwin is another guy.
Thomas Rawls.
Free agent. Thomas Rawls. I mean, the Seahawks have a history of random guys that they either picked up off the street or were 7th round picks, just blowing it up in the preseason, especially at the running back position. And it's you guys got to see what Madison looked like when he first came in with Dalvin Cook sitting out. So this is these are important games, and like I said, I think it's not a good move by the NFL to shorten the preseason for a million reasons, but one of those reasons is you just don't get to see enough of these guys that are trying to make it in the league.
Yeah. And on top of that, there's a bunch of evidence to suggest that shortening the preseason, a lot of teams have changed their preseason approach. That is directly leading to more injuries in those first few weeks of the season. And we're talking big names have been injured the past couple of years because they're not getting those reps.
It's all about player safety, guys. Just ask the NFL; they'll tell you it's all about player safety.
All right. So, what 3 things are each of you looking for? And Mitch, give us what you're looking for on the Vikings. What are you guys looking for in this game from a team perspective?
You want me to go first, or want Mitch to go first?
Sure, Adam, why don't you go first?
We'll sandwich Mitch in between the Seahawks. That sounds great.
Sounds good.
So the first thing I'm really looking for is just when we come out in base defense, what do we look like? Are we going to see more uneven fronts or even fronts? Because they've talked a bunch of, especially our defensive line coach and our defensive coordinator have talked about this is going to be a much more of a hybrid look this year. They're going to play odd and even fronts. Guys are going to get moved around a lot. I want to see if we're going to be playing around with any of that in this season, or if we're just going to come out and we're going to see one guy with his hand in the dirt and everybody else standing up like I saw way too many times last season. So that's the first thing I'm looking for is what does this defensive line look like when we take the field at first. I also want to see offensive personnel groupings. I mean, I know we're not going to get to see a lot of our starters this game, but and obviously that is going to personnel that we have is going to dictate the personnel on the field. But are we going to get to see some 12 personnel? Are we going to get to see any 13 personnel? Are we going to go with any heavy sets, or is this going to look like a much more wide open offense? Which I think, considering who we have starting at quarterback, Drew Lock, a wide open offense is kind of what it probably plays better into. So we might see that just because he's the starting quarterback this week. And the last thing I'm looking for is, where is Shane Waldron? Where's he at? Is he still on the field? And if so, why? Why are you still on the field? Get off the field. Go up in the booth where you belong. You're an offensive coordinator. You need to see the freaking field. Get up there. And that's the last thing I'm looking for.
So for mine, I think a couple of things that I'm looking for the Vikings. One is specifically how the defense is going to play tonight. It's pretty well documented that Vikings had an awful defense last year. If I'm not mistaken, I believe they were like 31st in yards allowed, and they were in the bottom third of the league in points allowed. So, I mean, we're talking about an extremely atrocious defense, and that hurt us big time in the playoffs, and that loss against the Giants. So subsequently, we brought in Brian Flores, who has a good reputation, comes from that Patriot system, turned around a Miami Dolphins defense when he was there and had some solid players and solid schemes. As we know, he has a really high pressure rate as well. So I'm really curious to see, is that going to unfold here in the preseason? Is he gonna put out some of these packages? Are we going to see a lot more pressure? Last year with Ed Donatel, the defense sat back a lot and allowed a ton of yards. And so that's one of the big things. The other thing, it's the same topic, but I'm looking at specific position battles. And so one in particular I'm looking at is running back, because right now we know Dalvin Cook was cut, and that's a huge hole, right? I mean, Dalvin is still in his prime, right? He can still run the rock. I think his yards per average went down significantly last year. Some of that was with the scheme changes with KOC coming in. We have Alexander Madison, who is a well-rounded third three-down back, but behind that is a lot of question marks. And from a Vikings fan, just from somebody watching these preseason games last year, I know Ty Chandler was someone who burst onto the scene in those preseason games, and so I want to see that continue, hopefully for him. Otherwise, you got Kenny Wangu and Dwayne McBride as well. Dwayne McBride being a 7th-round pick, he's a lot less of a pass catcher, and so it'll be interesting to see who's able to claim that number 2 running back position. And then the other thing I'm looking at is also on the offensive side of the ball is a wide receiver. I'm looking at that battle. Who's going to be the 2, the 3, the 4, right? I know we drafted Addison, and so the expectation is that he is going to be the number 2. You still have KJ Osborne here, and so is it possible that KJ Osborne beats him out, right? Especially early on in the season. I'm not sure if any of you remember, but a couple of years ago when they drafted Jay Jettas, and he was a rookie, he really didn't play the first 2 or 3 weeks of the season. They had BC Olabisi Johnson. There we go. That was starting over him. It was like a 7th-round pick, right, or a 6th-round pick, real late round, and so it was kind of surprising. And so I'm kind of interested to see if they're going to ease Addison in, or if he's going to be the number 2 right away. So that's kind of what I'm looking for, is specific camp battles.
Robbie knows this. I was super high on Dwayne McBride coming out of the draft. This is the guy that I love. I just think that, I mean, of all the people in the draft, I think I actually said this during our draft prep, was if you're looking for a guy that reminds you, it has a little bit of that beast mode in him, could look a little bit like Marshawn Lynch back in the day. It's Dwayne McBride. He has great low center of gravity. The guy's feet are always moving. He's really, really fun to watch. He doesn't have great breakaway speed, and he has bricks for hands, but he can run the ball. And I'm excited to see him because I think we're going to get hopefully a heavy dose of him in this preseason game, and he's a guy that I like coming out of the draft. So
I would suspect he's going to get a lot of reps tonight. So being a 7th round rookie, so
yeah. In fact, McBride, Jaron Hall, Addison, they all made our top 10 of their respective positions shows that we did in preseason scouting. So, and those were guys that we liked. It wasn't a true top 10, but those were all guys that we spotlighted. So we are big fans of the Vikings draft over here at the Let's Talk Seahawks podcast. Yeah. For me, the 3 things I'm looking for going into this game are, can the defensive line actually stop the run? Because they couldn't do that at all last year. I think
not if we've only got one down lineman. We're not going to.
I think they only had they were ranked like 27th or something, and being able to stop the run, it was abysmal. So can we stop the run? It's going to be weird because it looks like from footage we've seen in camp that they're one gapping out of an odd front, which means you have to have an extra guy come from somewhere because you're not two gapping in the middle. So I'm going to be interested to see how that works. Are we going to get a real vanilla version? Because you see in preseason offenses and defenses, teams don't want to show what they're going to do because it's like giving your opponents extra scouting. So how much of the scheme are we actually going to see? I want to see if that D-line can actually be effective. My second thing is, can Drew Lock lead the offense? Geno Smith isn't playing this game. Drew Lock came in, highly touted, highly drafted, right? He had a humbling year, sat behind Geno Smith, who had an outstanding statistical year last year. Let's see what he can do. He looked good in preseason before he got COVID and had to sit that game last year. A lot of people thought he might win the job, and then Geno Smith came in and just
a lot of people, two of which are on this podcast currently.
Oh, I apologized many times to Geno Smith for the.
Oh, we both did. We both had to. That was a lot of Crody because I was positive going into the season that Drew Lock was going to be our starting quarterback. I wasn't happy about it, but I was positive that's who our starting quarterback was going to be. And thank God I was wrong.
Well, if it makes you guys feel any better, I was in the same vein. I going into last preseason this time, I was looking at the Seahawks and going, boy, that's a dumpster fire. That's a 4-win team, right? And a lot of it just had to do with the past tape I saw on Geno and Drew Lock, right? It was just bad. And surprisingly, Geno came, wow, totally different quarterback.
Yeah, I think everybody was in that same boat. Whereas, you guys just got rid of your franchise quarterback, who was, at least in a lot of people's minds, ostensibly the reason why we were even in the playoff hunt the last 5 years of the Seahawks. And it ends up that wasn't actually the case. I think it may have been the other way around, and Pete Carroll might have been the reason we were even close to the playoffs. And maybe, and I look, nothing against Russ. I love Russell Wilson. I hope he has a great year this year, mainly because the Broncos don't owe us any draft picks. But if you just go off the film last year, man, it looks like Pete Carroll made Russell Wilson look like a Hall of Fame quarterback because he did not look like one as soon as he left.
Yeah. For sure. And in fact, the Broncos had a lot of issues. I don't know how Nathaniel Hackett got a head coaching job. It's because they were trying to get Aaron Rodgers to go there.
I can tell you exactly. Yeah, that's how he got a head coaching job.
So that was probably, in my opinion,
it's also how he got this offensive coordinating job. So
yeah, one of the worst coaching performances in NFL history. Where
you just want to read Sean Payton's statement about it?
Broncos.
Right. Did you actually Hard Knocks is out now? Did you guys see the episode on the Jets and Aaron Rodgers? I've watched the first episode and they
oh no, does Rodgers just good. Yeah, it was
nice. I'll have to watch it.
There's some material in there about that very topic. So it's worth a watch. Of course, Hard Knocks every year, right?
It's always unless the Cowboys are on Hard Knocks, then stuff.
Hey, we have a common interest here. Cowboys.
Yeah.
All right. And then
I don't even know why that's a team.
And then the third thing I'm watching our young defensive linemen, because at least two of those guys are going to have to step up and either be a starter for this defense this year or be a key rotational piece. So I need to see who's going to be able to step up, and I want to see that in this game. And that's that second unit.
Mike Morris.
Yeah. You think it's going to be the rookie Mike Morris? All right, let's see.
I want it to be the rookie Mike Morris.
All right. Well, we are running out of time, so why don't we go ahead and just go to our next thing, which is which 3 players are you watching, and why are you watching them, and what do you want to see from them?
Well, I don't know if I mentioned this before, but Mike Morris. I'm watching for Mike Morris. This guy was a beast coming out of Michigan, much more of an edge rusher. They packed on some weight, so now he's going to be rushing from the interior. I'm really excited to see that switch. This is a guy that I think we talked about this during the draft. Probably this is a guy that reminds me a little bit of our own Mr. Moses Bread. That was his Twitter handle. Michael Bennett, which is a weird Twitter handle. But just a guy that just plays with just a ton of ferocity at the point of attack. Not the fastest guy, not the biggest guy, not the strongest guy, but he knows how to work and use his body well. And I'm really excited to see what he looks like now that he's packed on that weight. Is going to be rushing from either that, I'm assuming, that 5 or 3 technique. So that's the only guy I've got on defense. The other 2, well, no, I lied. I lied, because the other guy is Kobe Bryant. I don't know how much we're going to see Kobe Bryant out there. I don't know if we're going to see him playing safety. I don't know if we're going to get a chance to see him play outside corner, which is what I really want to see, because I think he deserves a shot to try that outside corner position and see if he can make a name for himself. They haven't tried it a lot. There's no talk in camp that he got to see much of that outside. He was either playing the nickel or he was getting moved to strong safety, which is just a weird switch for me. I'm not really sure what that means for his career. I love Kobe coming out of college. I still love him. I hope he makes this team, and I want to see him get a shot at it. And the other guy is Jake Bobo, who was another guy I was pretty high on in the pre-draft process. I was super psyched when the Seahawks were able to pick him up as an undrafted free agent. I didn't think he was going to get drafted. This is a guy who's had a pretty unstoried career in college until he went to UCLA and then pretty much became the man in that offense. And he's shown it in camp. I mean, this is a guy that catches anything that's thrown at him. He's got great hands. He's got a real nice wingspan. Not a fast guy, not the best route runner, but he still finds ways to make plays. And I'd love to see him make a really, really big play like he did during our what do they call it, the warm-up game that we played in-house. So those are the 3 guys I'm looking out for.
Yeah, definitely. Jake Bobo gets caught from behind by offensive linemen, so he's not pulling away too much. Mitch, how about the Vikings? What players are you looking for tonight?
Yeah, so mine are really all on defense, honestly. I've got a one quick shout out for Blake Perot, who a lot of people don't know who that is, right? Pretty under. A wide receiver that is pretty far down on the depth chart, but he tore his ACL last year and he was out the entire year. But he's kind of a preseason darling of Vikings fans here, so it'll be interesting to see him back on the field. But my 3 players that I'm looking out for specifically, first one is at the defensive tackle position is Jaquilin Roy. So he was, I believe, a 5th round pick, if I'm not mistaken, at LSU, and so he is, gotten a lot of hype coming out of training camp, and I just that nose tackle, that defensive tackle position for the Vikings is wide open, right? So I really want to see what he can do on the field and what he can show out, what he can show. The other one that I have is Mekhi Blackman. He was our 3rd round pick. Of course, we know that the Vikings, they got rid of all of their cornerbacks, essentially all their starting cornerbacks, they're starting 4, and so he was considered actually a reach in the 3rd round by a lot of people. But I really like
not by this podcast. He wasn't.
Oh, he wasn't. No,
he was high on our list too.
Okay, yeah, and I actually like what he put on film as well. So he looks like a gamer out there. So I'm really excited to see him play today and tonight in the preseason game. And the 3rd guy, I'd say the best for last year, is undrafted free agent Ivan Pace Jr. Right, out of Cincinnati, undersized linebacker, super athletic. But here's a guy who obviously wasn't drafted, wasn't given a chance. And I am telling you, the reports I am reading out of camp are that this guy is the real deal, right? So there are people within the organization now talking about him being the potential starter next year, right?
Oh,
so
nice.
we know right now Jordan Hicks is the other inside linebacker who's going to start behind with Brian Asamoah. And if you haven't seen Brian Asamoah play, that's another electric inside linebacker for us. So I'm really interested to see Ivan Pace Jr. get out there and get some reps in. He is a big time gamer, super athletic. So just undersized, right? The guy's small. So we'll see what happens.
Awesome.
Yeah, those guys can't surprise.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up Is it? I've always said prol, like because it's spelled like Ricky
Yeah,
Prohl back in the day.
yeah,
Am I just? You're the guy that lives there.
yeah. Parole. Yeah, that's how I say it. That I maybe enunciation police are coming for me right now. I can
No,
already
you're
tell.
good.
So
You're good. I'm just
some of
making
these
sure.
players' names too. You're like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna butcher this name. Hold on, let me get this right. And so, but yeah, parole as far as I know. Yeah. So like you said,
I'm a big
parole.
fan of his. In fact,
Yeah.
I used to go snag him up on Madden, and he'd always be on my little Madden team because I like the player, like in person, watching film on him. He's somebody I really hope does well. So I'm glad you brought him up.
Yeah,
Also on the
underdog.
Vikings. Yeah. Also, Vikings players, definitely looking forward to Jaren Hall, seeing what he can do. I know being out of BYU, we got to see him a little bit more on the West Coast.
I got to see him live twice.
Yeah, Adam got to actually watch him go play. It's
nice.
another player. Like I said, we big fans of the Vikings draft. So a lot of those guys we're looking forward to see play. As far as the Seahawks, undrafted free agent wide receiver Matt Landers is on my list.
Ooh, yeah.
Big guy,
a good one.
6'3", over 200 pounds, supposedly runs a 4.3, just big, huge body. I want to see if he can put that to work. Is he just big and fast, or can he actually box out and use his body properly? And how's his route running? All of these questions I want answered, and this is the chance that he can go out there and answer those questions.
Yeah, that's a good one. Sorry to interrupt, but that's a good one. Matt Landers was actually someone I was really high on. Arkansas, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah, so yeah, he was somebody I was really high on, height, speed, weight guy. So yeah. Anyway.
No, you're good. And then the center, Oluwatimi, probably one of my favorite prospects in this draft.
Certainly the one you talked about the most.
Definitely the one I talked about the most. But yeah, he's been in that battle, and there's been really good stuff coming out of camp. I think the experience of Evan Brown is starting to push Evan Brown over the hump as the starter. But like I said, I think Oluwatimi is going to end the season as the starter. I want to see what I can see out of him today, see how he matches up. His knock has always been athleticism. Is he too slow from ball to defender? So some little technique things are what I'm looking for him. And then third, we have the safety, Jarek Reed, the second rookie. When they drafted him, I had no clue who this guy was. We were doing our live draft coverage, and Adam and I at this point, because it was in the 6th round that they drafted him, we'd been talking, over the course of the days for like 16 hours at this point. And so we're scrambling to go find a scouting report on this guy, but I want to see how he's used. Is he going to come in as a actually challenge in that safety rotation in a really loaded secondary that the Seahawks have? Or is he coming in and going to be that special teams guy who has defensive upside that they're going to stick around and he's going to make the team off of special teams? They seem to really like him. He works out, has some of the same trainers with some of the other Seahawks defensive backs. Apparently his family are friends with KJ Wright. So really he's got ties to the organization. And I really want to see if the news that we've been hearing out of camp is legit. Is he this player who's going to come in and we're going to see in a Seahawks uniform for the next 5, 6, 7 years?
Just as a bonus, I'd really like to see, because we're not really set with who our returners are. And this kid, he was an All-American returner in high school. This kid was a returner in high school. That was what he did. I'd love to see if we can get him out there just on 1 or 2 of those during this game, just to see if he can fill that role, because that's a role that I think if there's any position on the Seahawks that is completely wide open, it's who's going to be returning the ball on punts and kickoffs.
Yeah. See, you say that.
Yeah.
If you look at the depth chart,
no Tyler Lockett. No.
It says DJ Dallas as the starter for both kickoffs and punts,
which we both know is no good. It's fine. He's not. No, he's fine, but no.
The second stringer is Jackson Smith-Njigba, which we don't want. And the third one is Tyler Lockett. And we're see, what are you doing?
All bad. And I know that 2 out of 3 of those guys are playing tonight, but let's not get our first round pick blown up on a kickoff return for the preseason, shall we?
Yeah.
Shall we?
Well, the good news is they changed the rules for kick returns too. So I mean, there's that aspect of it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, so in theory, you're going to have less kick returns. So maybe it's they're devaluing the position even more, right?
We're just going to see a ton of squib kicks. That's all. I mean, that's what's happening.
I want to see a team go put a offensive tackle back there and just be like, just fair catch it. You'll be fine.
No one's gonna
All
run
fair
it. No
catches now
one's,
come
no
to the
one's gonna run
25.
into you. No one's gonna try and tackle you. You're
Yeah.
huge.
You're huge.
Although it'd be really funny to watch somebody try and like blow up a tackle on a fair catch. That would be beautiful.
All right, before we wrap it up, I know it's preseason, so game predictions don't really matter. But what is something that you're predicting out of this game? It doesn't have to be a score. Just some aspect of the game that you're going to predict is going to happen. Adam, you want to kick us off?
Yeah, I'm gonna give you two. I'm gonna give one for Mitch and one for me. On Mitch's side, we're gonna hear that maybe Dwayne McBride is making a name for himself as the possible starter at running back. Not that I don't nothing against Alexander Madison. He's been very serviceable when needed and called upon. But I just think Dwayne McBride has something special. And then the other thing is that Jake Bobo is going to make the team. Just coming out of this game, I expect him to have like 5 or 6 catches. Maybe not 100 yards, but that's only because he can't run. So nothing after the catch, but I expect him to secure every catch that's thrown his way, and I expect him to score. And I expect there's going to be talk about him making the team.
All right, Mitch.
So I think my prediction is that the Vikings defense is going to show out tonight a little bit. Even some of these. So they've really recycled this roster, and so they've got a lot of young talent, a lot of guys on this roster with some fire in their belly. And we all know during preseason games, a lot of times the defense has an advantage, right, over the offense. They're not really synced up yet, even with backups. So I think it's going to be a little bit more of a defensive struggle, and the Vikings defense is actually going to show us a lot of improvements tonight. So
excellent. Yeah, mine's on the defense too. In fact, it's basically the same thing that you just said about the Vikings. I think the Seahawks defense are going to show us that last year was a fluke, that they're coming in, that they're going to show the world that we have the athletes, that we have addressed some of the schematic issues. Let's see if Sean Desai leaving and taking a little more of that Fangio influence out of our defense, because nobody does well with Fangio influence. That's not true, but it is. Anyway, we can get into that later.
We will.
I think the defense is going to surprise us, even with 75% of the starters not playing.
So we're looking for a 0-0 tie game at the end, huh?
I would love that. That'd be awesome. It would be horrible. The NFL would hate that, but I would love it because I'm a defense guy.
Yeah, it feels
score then.
Yeah, snooze fest, right?
Yeah,
13-10. See, that's why they opened the NFL up and they're scoring touchdowns, right? Everybody remembers the KC Rams game from a couple, few years back with Goff and Mahomes just going nuts, right? And they never remember those Thursday night games. Like last year was a couple. What was the game last year with the Broncos?
I remember all those games. I remember Clipboard Jesus leading us to a loss of what was it, 6-3, 6-3 or 9-3.
Oh.
That was the most inept game I have ever seen in my entire life.
And with that, we look forward to the preseason game against the Minnesota Vikings. We'll be back tomorrow with a game reaction and recap. And good old Viking Mitch here will join us for that as well. So thank you for listening to the Let's Talk Seahawks podcast. As always, go Hawks.
Go Hawks.